80 years ago, from the ashes of a world at war, nations came together to create a new world order, and they signed the Charter of the United Nations. Its opening words, you all know them by heart, are strong, powerful, and important today. We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, to promote social progress, and better standards of life in larger freedom. In those powerful words lie the very DNA of countries working together across borders for peace, dignity, and equality. And over 8 decades, the United Nations has tried to turn those very ideals into human progress. But that liberal world order born in 1945, where people around the world for the very first time actually believed and had the expectation that there is such a thing as a shared humanity, that world order is under pressure. So today, as we celebrate 80 years of UN and the accomplishments, we also need to ask what comes next. What must the UN do to be ready for the challenges for the next 80 years? For the next 2 hours, we will take a journey together. We will celebrate, we will debate, and we will listen and enjoy that universal language of mankind, magnificent music. My name is Lilian Gerolf-Kratz. I will be moderating the event. I'm a former US correspondent. Today, I anchor the evening news covering this world in need of peace. On behalf of UN City Copenhagen, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you. And my first guest here on stage, to begin and head out on our journey of 8 decades, I would like for you to give a very warm welcome to the Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UNOPS. Please welcome Mr. George Moreira de Silva.
Happy UN Day. It's fantastic to be surrounded for so many distinguished guests and colleagues. Minister, State Secretary, ambassadors, distinguished guests, dear colleagues from the UN family, I'm very glad to welcome our guests on behalf of the 10 UN agencies that use these premises not as a premises, but as a facility to collaborate and to deliver for impact. The UN City is a formidable initiative to show collaboration, to show commitment, to show purpose in a country that is a remarkable leader on multilateralism. We are very happy to be hosted in Denmark, to be hosted in Copenhagen, and to use this celebration through these sessions to not only take stock, but especially to look forward. To take pride of the outstanding work of the UN members, the UN staff, UN personnel, those that in headquarters and on the ground support those who need it most. Take pride of the outstanding results, even in very challenging contexts. More than 70 peacekeeping operations in the last 80 years. The Human Rights Declaration, the Beijing Declaration, the Kyoto Protocol, and then the Paris Agreement. All the Compact on Refugees, all the commitment on the SDGs, first the Millennium Development Goals and then the SDGs. Advancing peace, prosperity, partnership, sustainability, inclusiveness. But there is no room for complacency. The fact that we have achieved a lot with the support of member states, this is a members-driven organization, with the support of the member states and with the passion from the staff on the ground and on headquarters, we have succeeded moving the multilateralism agenda. But as I said, no room for complacency. 1/4 of the people in the world live under conflict. We have never seen this since World War II. We still have half of the population without access to healthcare, 700 million people without access to electricity, 1/3 of the population without access to clean cooking, 2 billion people without access to safe drinking water. This shows that it's an unfinished job. And if it is true that without the UN it would have been impossible to achieve in so many things in the past, I'm sure that you agree that without the UN it will be impossible to overcome these bottlenecks. More than 100 million people forced displacement, more than 30 million refugees. We clearly know that what we don't invest on others will affect everyone. We shall do it from an ethical and moral point of view, but also in our own interest. Nobody is safe until everyone is safe. It's impossible to deliver on the climate agenda if we don't support the developing countries in the climate transition. So I think that in today's conversation, it will be very important to address the interdependence, the multidisciplinarity, and the need to invest on resilience. What we invest on resilience and on sustainability will drive the results we need to sustainable development. But this is also a moment where the UN is reforming itself. The boost to multilateralism needs a UN fit for the journey. And you clearly saw the deep commitment from the Secretary General and from member states in this UN 80 agenda. Let's make no mistake, the UN 80 agenda, the reform agenda on UN 80, is not to make the UN smaller. It's not about austerity or frugality. It's to ensure that the UN can deliver at scale and for impact. It's to make sure that we are more efficient but more capable to deliver at scale. The issue is not adjusting the UN size to the availability of the support we get, it's to adjust the UN capacity to the real needs of the people. And the people need us more than ever. And that's why it's very important to give a boost to multilateralism. UN 80 reform outlined from the sectional report is clearly boosting efficiencies, renewal of mandates, but also structural reforms, namely the reconfiguration of country teams, a regional reset, and the global collaboration. Let me end with telling you what is this flags about. So you probably are intrigued. This is a result of 4,000 children from 9 to 15 years. We are here for them. They expect the UN to deliver for them. And the intergenerational solidarity is a critical element to implement the SDGs. But I can't end this initial conversation without paying tribute to all my colleagues, all the UN colleagues here, but also on the ground, for their remarkable effort. I know that this is not a moment to look inwards and to look to the UN staff, but still, distinguished ministers, state secretary, ambassadors, please allow me to pay tribute to the remarkable work from the UN colleagues. Safe. Working for the UN is no longer a guarantee of being safe. We have never lost so many humanitarians in the world like this year. Humanitarians becoming a target, humanitarians not being safe, humanitarians not being able to provide the support of the people that need it most. The development protagonists not being able to provide the support looking forward and mainly being on the firefighting and band-aid exercise. This is a moment where we need also to strengthen the UN. So we expect from our member states, rather than any kind of hesitancy, we expect the member states to continue supporting multilateralism, and to support the UN. Thank you all for being with us today. In 2015, when we approved the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, that was in 2015. If we want to be serious, we are off track. Less than 30% of the SDGs are on track. We are in a pathway to 2.6 to 2.9 degrees rather than 1.5. We have $4.2 trillion finance gap. So in 2025, we need to give a boost to multilateralism in tangible and concrete manners. What does it mean? It means that in Belém do Pará, in 2 weeks from now, we need to get a deal that will put us back to the commitment on 1.5 degrees, which means that national determined contributions will need to be consistent with that, and today it's inconsistent. We need to honor our commitment on financing for development. And we have a good result in Sevilla. I'm sure that my dear friend Carsten will talk about that later, where we look beyond ODA. ODA is critical, it's fundamental, but there are many other financial resources like tax, direct investment, blended finance, impact investment, philanthropy, remittances. All this financing for development needs to work for development. But we also got a good result in Nice. For the first time, we have an agenda on ocean that is legally binding on the high seas. We did it. It's binary. Also,
honor for me to be here at the UN City and to mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations Charter. 80 years ago, in San Francisco, the nations of the world came together to say, never again, and to save the next generations from the scourge of war. They choose cooperation over confrontation, dialogue over division, hope over despair. Denmark was proud to be there at the beginning, and we are proud to stand by the United Nations today. The signing of the Charter was not only the creation of an organization, it was the birth of an idea. The idea that peace and justice can be built, not by force, but by working together. That our common future depends on a shared responsibility. For 80 years, that idea has guided us. It has helped us rebuild after wars, fight poverty and disease, promote equality and defend human rights. It has given a voice to small nations, to those who might otherwise not be heard. The UN has shown again and again that our destinies are linked, that no nation stands alone. The UN has also been a driving force for gender equality, from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to the Sustainable Development Goals. It has insisted that women and girls must be free to learn, to lead, and to shape their own future. Thanks to this persistent effort, millions of girls go to school who once could not. Women lead governments, businesses, universities, and in my humble opinion, the world is stronger for it. But now the world is changing. Wars have returned, extreme poverty is rising, the rules that protect peace and justice are being tested, and trust between nations is under pressure. Some ask if the UN still matters. The answer is yes, more so than ever. Because the challenges we face, climate change, technology, inequality, war and conflict, are all global by nature. And they can only be solved if we work together. That is why Denmark supports a stronger, more inclusive multilateral system. Through the Pact for the Future, member states have committed to updating the global order to make it fairer and more representative. We need a Security Council that reflects today's world. We need international financial system that truly support development and sustainability. And we need a UN that is brave and ready to adapt so it can keep delivering to the people it serves. This is the spirit of the UNCC Reform Initiative. When the Secretary General launched it earlier this year, Denmark was proud to host the UN Chief Executive's Board retreat here in Copenhagen. We do not want to change what the UN stands for. We want to help it stand stronger. Here in Copenhagen, we can see what it looks like when the principles of global cooperation is standing strong. UN City is home to nearly 2,000 people from around the world. People working every day on health, on food security, on gender equality, human rights, and sustainable development. It is efficient, it is innovative, and it is sustainable. And it is a living example of the One UN approach. And it is an important reminder that the UN is not only in New York or in Geneva, it is alive right here, in a small nation in the world, in the north, on the shores of Øresund. To all who work here, and on behalf of the Danish government, thank you. Your work and your dedication made the United Nations was not created to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell.
So really a lot to choose from. But if I have to choose, and I did choose, and the first one I chose, of course, is the UN Charter. And I'll explain why the UN Charter. Mm-hmm. I think the UN Charter was really the one that gave the UN the mandate to challenge injustice, to end oppression, to dismantle colonialism, and to uphold the principle of self-determination. Did this matter? Was that just all words? But no, it made a huge difference in the real world. Actually, we saw the map of the world being rewritten. More than 80 countries gained independence after the UN Charters. Many of them were helped by the UN. So rather than having, I think, 51 countries in the world at that time, today we have 193,
yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
So a whole new map of the world. It also established a new world order based on the sovereign equality of each country. So giving every country a say, not a totally equal say, but at least giving every country a say. So the global map, the global rule book, and a global playbook. A whole new way of peaceful coexistence, a new way of solving conflict peacefully, to ensure a platform for joint action, which really is what we spoke about. So no doubt, the first one is the Charter. The second one, of course, for me, is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And really what it did, the Universal Declaration, was to expand the principle of equality between states to equality between people. And I think I plan to take this opportunity to actually honor the member from India in the drafting committee of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Because the Indian member, and she was one of only 2 women in this drafting committee, the other one, of this drafting committee, insisting that the very first article of the Universal Declaration, saying the original draft said all men are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and she kind of insisted that needed to be redrafted, and saying instead that all human beings, so not men,
yes, thank you,
are born free and equal in dignity and rights.
That was Dr. Hansa Mehta.
Absolutely, that was Dr. Hansa Mehta. So it was an impressive achievement, and she set a clear normative status for women and all genders in international law. So extending human rights to everyone, a major achievement, and I think viewed from the perspective of the political realities in the world of the late 1948, a monumental step forward. So second one. I'll just mention very briefly, and I can see the time, but the third milestone for me is about accountability, and that is the 2005 Summit Outcome Declaration, building on Kofi Annan's report, Enlarge Freedom. Because that was the culmination of a large push for accountability, no longer just having norms and principles, but also holding countries to account. We saw in the 90s establishment a whole number of courts, and with the 2005 summit, we also got the Human Rights Council and the Universal Periodic Reviews, where all countries are actually held accountable and they are being reviewed for whether they are practicing what they preach. So those three milestones, together with others that have been mentioned today, are still guiding the work of the UN, but they are challenged, as you know. Just wanted to recognize the crisis that the UN is facing. It's a financial crisis, but it is also a political crisis. We see countries abandoning the values and the principles that the UN represent, and we see an erosion of the rule-based order, and we see global impunity spreading.
Thank you, Mette. So we hear about the challenges and we hear about the milestones. Mr. Ambassador, as we just heard from Mette, India's been part of the journey from the very beginning. So today, as we celebrate 80 years, I'm just wondering, do you think that today's multilateral system reflects the world as it is, or as it was in 1945?
Thank you. It's a great day today, and congratulations to all. It is our day. UN has completed 80 years, and it's a milestone for all of us. And of course, back in 1945, India was not even independent then, and has been an original founding member. Of course, we recognized the realities of the world at that time and made a UN system in a particular way. And that political consensus of that world order is today breaking down. When we cannot find solutions inside the United Nations, then the Security Council is helpless. If the General Assembly shouts and Security Council cannot listen, then of course all these kinds of problems which are arising in the world, we are today seeing the world is being fragmented. But we know that as we realized in 1945 that there's only one planet on which we can live, and there is only one platform where we can all get together. So UN, of course, would continue to be relevant all the time because we have no other option, but we have to revitalize it. And today, to rise up to those challenges, when we see that even the major actors who had upheld the UN principles, who had made a solemn oath, today the world trade order is breaking down. There's international rules are being flouted. Even if the UN passes a resolution, that is also not being listened to. And when the wars are happening in many parts of the world, it's not only Europe or the Middle East. There are many other parts of the world where they are having hotspots and we don't even have headlines for them. Then we see that there's a serious challenge today facing the United Nations. But we have to revitalize, we have to come together. And as we say, India also says that UN must reflect the system, the current realities of the world order. The world GDP growth rates have been shifting. The largest populations are coming from somewhere. Some people don't have voices in the United Nations. And we also forget the historical injustice, which was meted out to Africa. They were not even remembered. And I would just say that even during India's G20 presidency 2 years back, India brought this idea, and finally we got it, that Africa would be permanently represented in the G20. So in a smaller platform, we are able to do it. On a larger platform, how do we do it? That is the challenge. We all have to come together. We have to see that how we take this combined steps forward, and then only UN can become relevant. We have so many challenges in the world today. There is the crisis of food, crisis of nutrition, crisis of security. We saw when the pandemic broke down, there are many major countries in the world just closed their borders. And there was also a hoarding of vaccines and implements which would save your lives. At that time, who was thinking of all the deprived people of the world? And we have to come together. So I would say that values are universal, but they tend to break down if we don't reaffirm them every day. And by our practices every day, we have to find those values again and again. And if we don't do that, then of course there's a great problem that we will just slip back on that. So we should all come together and reflect that how we can make UN more universal, more representatives of today's world order, and that is the only way we can go forward.
Dion, yes, just a round of applause. Thank you. And the only way to go forward, we hear here, your research has kind of traced the concept of development from aid and reconstruction to sustainability and governance. How has this changing roles of the UN, as we just heard mentioned here, shaped global ideas of progress and solidarity?
Yeah, well, it's shaped them immensely, I think. I mean, to me, it's 80 years of insisting on matters and issues that too easily fall off the radars of individual nation states. I mean, inequality.
Humanity. And as I can say also, that there's a very popular saying in India that if there is somewhere heaven, then we should bring it to the earth. And that is what UN can aspire to do. I think that let's not undermine all the efforts which UN is undertaking. We know that this is the organization which provides hope for all of us. Of course, reforms are needed, and we can all talk about it. There's the problems of funding, etc. Smaller countries, other countries have been very sincere. There, some of the big players are, showing different kinds of cards now they hold. Let's not go into that. But I think that going together, talking about it, there are many ideas on the table, and Secretary General has recently been undertaking a lot of reviews. We can do, as it was being said, that a leaner, thing, multiplicity of mandates can be avoided. We can pool our resources together, and we can think that there is a lot of overlapping things which are going to different kinds of mandates. Let's focus on the basics where we haven't still reached. That is food security, nutritional security, and political freedom. Which should, which is just we cannot compromise on that. And let's also say that sometimes these ideas look very large, and we come to we accept them that as they are. Even when we are talking of decolonization in 1960s, 1960 was the Committee on Decolonization. We were talking of decolonization with terms and conditions. Can you imagine that? That we were talking of terms and conditions to decolonize people. So these look very fancy ideas now, and universally accepted ideas now. So there's a whole history of struggle which goes behind that. Let's not give up hope. We will continue to get on that.
Let's not give up hope, Mette. What do you say to the critics for that frame of questions?
I think it's excellent put. Let's not give up hope. If we give up hope, where will the world end? I think that the challenge really is for all of us, for the UN and for the rest of us, is to bridge these global commitments and principles with the local realities that we face. You mentioned the food challenges, the health challenges and all that, but it's also how do we actually put the global commitments into the local realities and making sure that rights is not just something we declare, but that it's also something that is actually delivered and upheld in reality. And I thought about examples of what could it look like, what are we thinking about when we talk about the transmission of the global principles into concrete actions. And we all know it's about accountability, and recent examples of how the system is working. We saw earlier this year the arrest of the former Philippine President Duterte for crimes against humanity. It shows how global norms can have concrete, real-world consequences that we have this arrest. I think also that the groundwork was laid nationally by the Philippine National Human Rights Institution that was documenting the violations that have been supporting the victims, and also then interacted with the UN mechanisms. So the point is, you need individual change makers, you need national systems, and you need principled international cooperation to bring this together.
I would say that we are still to achieve a nuclear weapons-free world. And let's not forget disarmament. We have to get there. It's a threat to our entire existence. In the multiplicity of other issues, sometimes we forget that. But India brings that resolution every year, and hopefully one day we will achieve that.
Thank you. Mette.
friend. It's mostly about reciprocity, the back and forth connection, if you will. Let me take you back just a little bit now. Thanks to the promo, premeditated, making my moves flow so motivated. Just like a model, am I gonna die hard or settle low scores and get some new.
Thanks for watching Indiavision. Please subscribe to keep updated on any new videos that we release, and give us a thumbs up with your comments if you've liked this video.